Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again Michael Hyson. Michael, good to have you on.
It's good to be here.
All right, so uh, we had done studying the Necronomicon part one, and that got a good response. So we're going to go ahead and do part two and get into this. Once again, I have with me the Simon Necronomicon, Grimoire Necronomicon. Hyson's got, of course, his big collection he was showing off last time. Let me ask you this, Michael.
All right.
So, what would you say is the main difference between the old ones and the ancient ones that often gets overlooked?
I think the old ones, or the ancient ones as we refer to them as, were the original gods. There are 9 lords of chaos that are rarely even spoken of by modern practitioners, especially those that practice any kind of abysmal magics. And when
Mm.
we're talking about the Necronomicon, you have the ruling body, and then you have what is in pagan societies we refer to commonly as demigods. It would be like showing off between the Titans and the Olympic gods, if you will. And that's basically the separation of them. You got the old ones, which are the originals, and then you have the ones that kind of like came up after the fact.
Mhm. Now, there's a lot of significance on the number nine. 'Cause in different cultures, you'll hear about the nine gods here and there. Why do you think there's such a significance on that number and on these specific ones?
Well, there's different realms, there's different dimensions, as you know. But when we get into it, there's every single religion has, say, for an example, 9 archangels or the 9 lords of the abyss, for an example.
Right.
You also have the 9 planetary figures. Okay. So there's a lot of different aspects that go into that. So, I mean, when we get into numerology, this number 9 really does play a significant role.
Mhm.
It would be like the number 13 or 6, 66, and 666
Mhm.
when we're dealing with demonic currents. They
Okay.
all have significance.
Now, let's go ahead and jump into something. Go ahead and get the Simon Necronomicon. Let's go to page 49.
Right?
Okay, so page 49, the paragraph in the middle, it says, and there are the Alu, frightening dog-faced demons that are the messengers of the gods of prey and that chew on the very bones of a man. Now, would you say that these are the same dogs that are mentioned in mythology that are sent to collect souls?
I would.
Mm.
You consider if we go into either Irish or Scottish mythology, you have the Sith or the Sidi.
Mm.
These are different types of races, if you will, of the people of the mounds. And when we're talking about animals and how should we say this, the transfiguration, if you will,
Mm.
from man into beast, let's take the Bugarest, the werewolf or the black dog. Okay. In a lot of lore, the Bugarest is known as the black dog, the hellhound. You're
Right,
seeing through Hecate, you see it through, say, for an example, Freya or Hell, for an
right,
example.
right.
Hades. Okay. The dogs are always there. But if we're talking, say, for an example, the lycanthrope, we see the son of Loki, Fenris. We see the Sith in the Sidi, which is the other terminology for them. And these are like the half breeds that literally go out and can tear anything apart.
Mm.
But unlike the Hellhound or the Bugarest, if you will, these are the beings that are literally there to kind of give you that wake-up call. The black dog, for, say, for example, truckers, if you've ever hung around truck drivers and listened to the stories where they push themselves beyond limitations, it said that a black dog comes out of nowhere and it causes an accident. It's like a wake-up call. In mythology, a black dog is associated with hell. Look at, say, for an example, the three-headed dog himself, the guardian of the underworld. Hades has these black dogs that patrol the halls of hell. But if you're a demon who makes pacts, then these beings go out and they collect that soul after a certain amount of time.
You know, there's also there's also a lot of talk in mythology, some mythology of, let's say, centaurs coming to collect men's souls after they die.
Yeah.
Uh,
But there's also another aspect of them too that most people don't know. The witch's familiar.
Interesting.
The black dog is also known as a protector. If you're into the Strigoi, for an example, the Bugarest would be the daytime guardian.
Mm.
For a witch's familiar, the dog or the cat, which goes along with the Sith or Siddhi aspect, is a witch's familiar.
Mm.
Protector, giver of wisdom, errand boy, if you will.
Right.
So yes,
Now,
I do concur with that.
okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and let's open up the grimoire of the Necronomicon. Let's go over to page 31. Okay, so let me know when you're there. Okay, so this is the chapter on Cthulhu. I'm just going to read the first paragraph here. Cthulhu flew on his vast leather wings across the gulf space to conquer and rule this world. He had no other purpose. He revels in combat, warfare, bloodshed, death, conquest his way, and the way of his spawn, who are like him in their general appearance, but smaller. Whereas Cthulhu is as large as a mountain, his spawn are little bigger than horses or cows. They also possess wings for flying through the air and through the dark emptiness of space. They are said to resemble the octopus, but this is true only of their heads, which are hung in the front of their faces with tentacles that lift and writhe about in the air. For they are all by nature dwellers on the surface of the earth and in the air. It is only misadventure that casts them below the waves of the sea, which they loathe and despise with a passionate hatred, for this water prevents them from sending forth their thoughts across the face of the world to control those who worship them. Now, concerning Cthulhu and his spawn, are they mentioned in any other lore throughout history?
Not that I've come across. However, I have come across beings that live under the water.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it from the abyssal aspects, many religions, or a few religions, I should say, actually show you the beings looking up at mankind, okay, or the actions of other gods. When we look at, say, for an example, let's go with Leviathan as an example. When he is called forth, he comes from the depths of the ocean. This is biblical revelations type stuff. So it is said that he's always watching from beyond the wastelands. This is why Cthulhu is actually associated with hell in the abyss. And he's also considered one of the ruling bodies of the nine themselves. Now, in this case, if you're looking at them and you're looking at the things that we as men do to each other, We're calling on all these different gods from, say, the white light practitioners of tetragrammation or that of satanic. Look at it from, they're watching from beyond the veil, trying to find their way in.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going by mythology, let's go by, say, Homer's Odyssey, perhaps even Paradise Lost, if you will, where you have to actually have that gate. You have to have a planetary figure, a seal. You have to have a place of origin, okay, which is what I showed you earlier, where you have the Era, Aga, Bandar, and that order, because you got your starting point, your black gate or your gate of origin, and then you have the planetary aspect of dimension, plane, or say, for an example, multifaceted dimensions where you have to go through. It's like a calling card to bring that spirit forth, especially in evocation. So in Paradise Lost, it shows how the practitioner can actually contact the being. Okay, in this case, it would be Alistar, the executioner. If you go into Homer's Odyssey, you see where the individual, Odysseus, is standing between two veils, that of the Elysian Fields and that of Hades. But yet he's communing with both.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you say that Cthulhu and his spawn have any connection at all with the deep ones?
The fact that he's a bringer of chaos, the fact that he's literally in the wastelands, which is associated with death and dying,
Right.
I would say yes. They're most likely, in my opinion, a very ancient foundation. And they do have their how should I say this, perks, if you will, of being worked with, especially working alongside spirits like, say, for an example, Murmur, Bifram, or Seer,
right,
from Glacia, because you're dealing with death and dying, so you can go through them to get to Cthulhu.
Okay. Now, you had been working on something that has to do with the rites of Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and hear about that.
The rites of the Necronomicon is a series of rituals that you can perform. If we go into, for an example, Simon's Necronomicon, and you go into the very first chapter here, let's go into of the Azoni and their attributes, if you will.
Okay.
Page 19. You go into page 21, you'll see the very first field.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And in this case, you're talking about Nana. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you want to work with Nana, or say, for an example, Marduk, which is actually the first name of all the 50 names of Marduk, you'd want to have his seal. You want to have the name or the whisper of that being. So if you're going to be doing a rite or a series of rites working with this spirit, you'd want to have the word that is associated with that spirit. In this case, let's look at Marduk. Okay. Marduk has, and I kind of do a diagram for you so you can actually see it.
All right.
You notice on this side here, you have the 3 points of origin. You have our world, the gate, and the planetary. You have Marduk's seal, his name, the spirit's name. Down here, you have his word. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you go over here, I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm going to get a little close here.
Okay.
You'll notice a little prayer. Okay? Now, if you read down through it, you have the prayer in the old tongue, or what we would classify as the demonic tongue. Okay? Now, you notice about halfway down, right here, you have the spirit's name and then the word. and then you continue on with the prayer. This is said before you even get into the evocation or the calling. You have to have your hands washed, your mouth cleaned. You have to have the candles, the incense, everything going long before you even begin this prayer. If we think about say for an example, I'm going to do it. Most people would understand this from let's go with the Kabbalah working with the tree.
Okay.
Each level of system here, you have different degrees of spirituality. You have different aspects and attributes going into these rites. So you have the preparation process, you have the prayer or the summoning, the welcoming of, say, hey, I'm calling on you, I'm welcome you into my temple, my chamber. Spirit's name, your word is thus, come forth, commune with me, commune with our coven, depending if you're in a people coven or solitary. From there, you go into the awakening. Okay. This is where you're literally evoking them. You want to use the seal. You start out with a meditational process. You go into the focusing of that seal and the intention. You evoke the spirit. You bring forth the sacrifice, the offerings. Then you can actually get into the actual workings and ceremonial aspects of working with that spirit. Now, here's the kicker that a lot of people don't realize. When you do a seal and that seal is given to you, no one else is allowed to touch it. Otherwise, you're going to have to burn it and then start again. And just like any other evocational ritual, you can also end it and close that gate. Kind of like saying, hey, thanks for coming. Let's do this again sometime and continue on.
Now, it's been Kane, and I had done a video not too long ago on his book, The Black Book of Azathoth. And he had mentioned in that book about Nyarlathotep's servitor, the Haunter of the Dark.
Yeah.
The information on that, I haven't found too much. Is there any information that you've come across on the Haunter of the Dark that has not been mentioned by Kane? Or do you have any experience with working with his Nyarlathotep servitor at all?
I haven't come across much of the information that he hasn't already discussed.
Yeah.
What I have come across is basically supporting what he said.
Mm.
One of the best ones that I would recommend would be the Fragments of Nagok to you.
Okay.
This particular book will help you get into working with him or any one of the spirits from the Necronomicon. But here's the thing that I would point out to you and everyone else if you're going to get into that.
Right.
Is like any other system, if you want to get into working with a main being, go through a lieutenant. It would be like going through Lucifer's Raquel to get to Lucifer.
Makes
or
sense.
Working, you know what I'm saying? It would be like working with Paimon, who's one of Lucifer's most trusted. And it also helps set up a strong foundation, a basis saying, hey, I'm serious about this. I want to work with you. Can you open that door so I'm able to commune with you? Let's work together. Let's see what we can do together and for each other. And that way you can actually begin to working with this being. And I think Esben is actually quite accurate in his description and his works within that attribute.
Yeah, I think so too. Now let's go back to the Grimoire of the Necronomicon. Let's go to page 50. Okay, so I'm going to read the bottom paragraph. It says, yet before this can occur, um, he must wipe this globe clean of all lower forms of life so that it can be lifted back up to its former place by his servants, the old ones, and by those transformed among our race who aid his purpose. Those who do
Mhm.
his bidding are granted precious favors, and magic is theirs to command. Um, it may be long ages before the stars come right, and the old ones walk unhindered across the land. Nyarlathotep seeks to speed the cleansing of this world by having the old ones engender a race of hybrids on mortal women. But the work is slow. Those who serve him enjoy rare pleasures while this work goes forward over many lifetimes. In the end of days, they will be lifted up and a suitable reward found for them. In the meanwhile, they thrive and work their will on this ignorant mass of man who know nothing of the change that is to come apart from a few vague myths they refuse to credit. Now, would you say that there is a connection between this hybrid race and Rh negative blood?
I do. If you
Let's
go
hear about that.
to, well, I'm going to do it from this perspective.
Okay.
The Book of Watchers, the Book of Giants, the three books of Enoch, Book of Genesis. For an example, they speak of the Nephilim. Okay. So the half-breeds, even in Greek mythology, you have the demigods, half human, half god.
Right.
In this case, let's look at the Nephilim. They're known as the old ones of wise. They're the wise elders, if you will. The giants that lived along upon the earth. The gift of being with a good woman and having them bear children for you, for an example, as the Bible says that the angels did with the daughters of men, produce these children. Okay, these half breeds. A lot of the old texts, such as the Zohar, the Jewish Haggadah, the Talmud, the Book of Tobit, they've all discussed different races, different types of beings. Now, when you are loyal to a specific current, let's say, for an example, demonolatry, you're working with Lucifer, the perks would be power. You'd be given a title, such as Magus, or say, for an example, King, Prince, Duke, Marquis, if you will. You'd be considered royalty because you work with those beings. Okay, especially working with Belial, the giver of titles of importance. But when you're working with, say, Marduk, for an example, he is the overall magician who teaches you witchcraft, sorcery of various different types. So while you're performing their will upon this world, you're limiting, say, your enemy. You're doing their work. You're earning your keep. So by the next phase of your existence, while leaving this world, you would join their ranks. Okay? With the Nephilim, it was a whole different thing because the enemy god, or the false god, if you will, depending on who you talk to, look at it as, say, for an example, the tetragrammaton aspects of white light practitioners would rather destroy rather than to work with. We've seen this time and time again with many religions. The Nephilim were those half-breeds, just like the Sith or the Sadi. Look at Hercules. Look at what Hera did to him. Jason and the Argonauts, for an example, another key component through folklore and mythology. Odysseus. Where do you think they ended up? They worked for the gods. They did the gods' will, not just their own.
So would you say that some people who have Rh negative blood that are connected to this hybrid race that is spoken of, um, they are actually doing the work, this
Mm-hmm.
work,
I
and
would.
they may not know it, but when the time comes, they'll be ready to take action. Would you say that?
Correct. You're given the tools when you're ready, when you've earned them.
Right.
The more you practice, the more you do the work, the more you apply it to your life, the more you're going to be given. It's like it's like rewarding a child for good behavior.
I see.
Best way I can put it to you, right there.
So in other words, another statement would be they were born for this specific time, for the time of
Correct.
action. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Um, let's go back over to the Simon Necronomicon. Let's go to page 208.
Okay.
Okay, so now the second paragraph, it says, remember that the essences of the ancient ones are in all things, but that the essences of the elder gods are in all things that live. And
Mm-hmm.
this will prove of value to thee when the time comes. Can you explain a little bit more in detail of what this statement means?
When we look at what we classify at from our perspectives
Right,
as being alive or being dead,
right,
that would be the element of blood, because blood is the essence of both life and death. Without it, we die. With it, we live.
right,
But we are also connected. If you think about all the wars, all the mass murders, or whatever you want to call it throughout history that we have done to each other,
right.
let's say, for an example, we go by this by the let's go by the book of Genesis, where supposedly, according to Christians, it all started with Adam and Eve, right? So if we take it from that, all humans came from those two beings. So would that not make us all brothers, sisters, cousins,
Right,
family?
right,
Why are we killing our family? But yet we know for a fact through our religious texts and through various different religions over time that you had an angels come to our world, into our universe, such as the devil's what was the name of that book? I actually got it on the next room too.
Mm.
It's Devil's Apocrypha, something like that. I
The
can't remember.
Devil's Apocrypha, right? Is that what you're
That's the
talking
one.
about? That
That's
one?
the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we take this, they came from a dying realm. They all came to our realm, created all of us.
Hmm.
Okay, out of example here. Now, what if one wanted to share his philosophy with us? And one of the main powerful gods decided, no, we want them to be submissive. Okay. Look at Zeus to
Hmm.
Prometheus, Lucifer to Jehovah, came an outcast, right?
Right.
Demons. So if we are all connected, why would we limit ourselves to anyone else? So if we're all connected to that essence, that overall essence, then we've forgotten that over time.
Hmm.
And we need to get back into it. And as Black Magi, this is what we do. Witches, warlocks, we connect to it. As a religionist, no matter if you're a zealot or whatever, you're connecting to that essence, that primary essence, going right back to the old ones.
Hmm. Okay.
So yes,
Very,
I concur with that.
very well said. Well, Michael, it's been a fun discussion here. Um, is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to go ahead and plug before we close this?
Well, I'm actually writing my book.
Okay.
I've gotten 7 essays done, and I'm working on the next one, which is the tools and the rites, putting herbalism into it and everything else. So,
Yeah. Well, when that does drop, let me know. We'll have you on to discuss the book. So I'm looking
well,
forward to it. Yeah. And so, yeah, everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't checked out our part 1 video of studying the Necronomicon with Michael Hyson, I also did one with Guion Hughes. You can check that one out too on the playlist. And everyone who's watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.